Shrek is a cult franchise that has forever changed animation and has become a real cultural phenomenon. Probably no other work of art. And Shrek's place in the museum, I believe, has not caused such unanimous adoration. Take at least endless memes. All pop culture references and adult jokes have been found for a long time. Small details have been noted, disassembled from and to, and in fact very literate, and prescribed the script. In short, as if everything had already been said about these films, but one point is almost always ignored, namely the fact that Shrek is brilliant and the revolutionary soundtrack is one of the best in the history of cinema. And yes, I mean it. But to understand why the soundtrack of Shrek is so good, you need to figure out how Shrek himself appeared. This is Jeffrey Katzenberg. If this name and face don't seem familiar to you, then that's how it should be. Katzenberg is some kind of famous screenwriter, director, or composer. He's a producer and at one time worked for the Disney company. Worked well and almost rose all the way to the head of the entire car corporation. But then for some reason he was fired. It doesn't matter. And the important thing is that after a while Katzenberg founded the DreamWorks studio and wanted to give his former employer a hard time. And it was thanks to him that Shrek, from a typical fairy tale, as it was originally planned to do, turned into a satire on Disney cartoons, and a very malicious one. Shrek deliberately takes the familiar Disney formula and turns it upside down. Instead of a handsome prince, there is a green ogre instead of a passive lady in distress, a fighting and smart girl. The antagonist is not some kind of evil, but a politician with an inferiority complex who has his own principles, and the same goes for the soundtrack. Instead of original songs written specifically for the film, DreamWorks made the soundtrack a collection of time-tested pop hits, while being very different from Leonard Cohen's lyrical ballad. Before Bonnie Tyler's peppy singing. This decision immediately turned Shrek from just another cartoon into a vibrant postmodern work that does not avoid popular culture, but on the contrary literally screams that it is a part of it. But simply put, you all know perfectly well. Well, or the All-Star song by Smash Mouth. Today this song is completely associated with Shrek and has become the real anthem of the franchise. But have you ever watched the video for this song? Have you ever wondered what's going on here? Who all these people are? Ben Stiller, what are you doing here? Actually, 2 years before Shrek, a song that was already an independent hit was played in the movie Mysterious People, and then in Inspector Gadget, and then in The Rat Race, and only then in the cartoon about the Green Ogre. That is, even if dozens of other paintings were used, the creators of Shrek didn't really care if it suited them. They left it. Yes, the use of pop songs in the film today will not surprise anyone. But just so that you understand, in the 7 years that have passed since the appearance of the first sound cartoon, Shrek was the first to come up with such an approach, and this is the very revolution. At the same time, the tracks were not chosen by chance. On the contrary, Shrek's soundtrack never overshadows the main action, but only more complements it. Donkey and Shrek go on a journey. Shrek cannot sleep, tormented by various thoughts.
I need some sleep, time to put the old horse down.
The donkey believed in love. And the climax of the perfect combination of what is happening on the screen with music was the finale of Shrek 2, where the main character rushes to the aid of his beloved, and in the background it sounds unequivocally, "I'm waiting for the hero." But if, after all you've heard, it seemed to you that the creators of Shrek were just too lazy to work on the soundtrack and they scrolled through their playlists on Spotify for 20 minutes, then of course this is not true. The title theme of the first part was completely original, which sounds so magical. And it's fascinating what immediately sits in my head, or Accident in Love, which sounds at the beginning of the second film.
These lines of lightning mean we're never alone, never alone.
It was written specifically for the sequel and eventually became a hit, received gold status, and is now even included in the top 10 of the best songs performed by the Counting Crows group. Do you think that's it? No. The Shrek soundtrack is also cool because it works perfectly for both its audiences, for children who came for a fascinating fairy tale and jokes about farting, These are vivid images through which, among other things, you can get acquainted with classics like Nick Cave or the Monkees. And for adults who enjoy postmodern references and also jokes about farting, this is a wink from the creators of a familiar song in the form of a familiar composition. And this joy of recognition also makes them watch the cartoon with interest. And suddenly some other familiar track will sound. In the end, everything is included. But it's all too good, don't you think? We all know that this doesn't happen, and I think you've noticed that every single example I give is from the first or second installment of the franchise. Yes, unfortunately, in terms of quality, films about Shrek can be divided exactly in half, where the first and second parts will be truly brilliant masterpieces, and the third and fourth are outright shit, and it would be better to forget about them altogether. Although okay, the third part still tried to match its predecessors, and even had some good jokes in it. Well, the fourth part is some kind of quiet horror, which began as a satire on stuffy fairy tales, hey, and finally turned into the same. The fourth part completely lacks at least some references to the real world and normal jokes. Just as the film itself has degraded, so has its soundtrack. There is not a single memorable song or musical episode in the fourth part. Only if you call it an ogre dance to a track called Shake Your Groove Thing. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. Why focus on the bad when we have so many good things? Because as the same Smash Mouth sang, it makes no sense to live for something other than fun.